Hello and welcome. I'm thrilled to dive into Weaviate 1.22, which has just been released. It includes a number of very exciting features to drive usability and performance even further. Let's take a look together. 1.22 adds the ability to store nested objects and introduces asynchronous vector indexing. Also, the gRPC support is now official. And a beta of the brand new v4 Python client has been released, which is very exciting. There's a lot of great stuff here, so let's get into the details, starting with the nested object storage. This change introduces two new data types to Weaviate for individual objects and arrays of objects. And let me explain why that matters. Without nested objects, you get flat structures like this, where all properties are on the same level. It also means that the data needs to look like this, where all keys are at the same level as each other. A challenge with this is that in reality, data often looks like this. You see here that the city and street name are both stored at the second level under a key called address. Data structure like this cannot be stored in a flat structure without some modifications. So we introduce these property data types that allow nesting. Each of them can have their own nested properties, which can in turn be whatever data types. Also, you can still use the auto schema feature to infer nested properties, which might be great for convenience. Although, as always, manual definition would give you the most control. Now, given that this is the first iteration of this feature, there are some limitations in 1.22. At the moment, data stored in these object data types don't affect the vector. And they're not yet indexed either, which means they can't be used for filtering. We're looking to add this feature, so if this is important, please upvote the feature on our GitHub issues. Asynchronous vector indexing is next. So, what makes it asynchronous? Let's start by looking at synchronous vector indexing. Under synchronous indexing, each request to add data looks like this for Weaviate. It would receive the request, create the data objects, add them to the vector index, and then send a response back to the client. The challenges with this process is that Weaviate has to do a lot. So, even though Weaviate's very fast, if you're dealing with tens of millions of objects, this can be a long process. Or if you send a lot of data in a particular batch, the request might even time out. With the new asynchronous indexing, Weaviate just creates the data objects before sending back a response. And the vector indexing process is now in the background. It provides these benefits in that the database is now ready faster and individual timeouts are less likely. Now, this is an experimental feature, so it's not quite ready for prime time or production. But if you do want to try it out, you can opt in by setting the async indexing to true. And if you're wondering what happens to search, it's handled by searching whatever's already indexed, plus up to 100,000 objects using brute force. 1.22 also makes gRPC support official, which is all about speed. More specifically, it'll mean faster batch imports and GET queries for its users. How does it do that? Well, the secret sauce is the fact that gRPC uses HTTP 2 under the hood, which is a faster protocol than 1.1, and it uses binary payloads, which is more efficient than using JSON. If you want to use gRPC, you can check out the protocol buffers in the Weaviate repository in GitHub, or you can use the new v4 Python client, which has the gRPC support built in. We'll of course be adding support to the other clients as well as we go too. Now that brings us to the v4 Python client. There are lots of changes here, and some of the key ones are improved developer experience and faster speeds. Reviewing the API was the big motivation for us with the v4 client, and I think we've done that with the new, more Pythonic API. This is an example of the old syntax. To define a class, you use the dictionary like this. And this is what the equivalent code looks like with the new syntax. You'll notice a lot of Python classes and functions, which provide a lot more help from modern IDEs, and you'll notice that there are no more raw dictionaries. Queries have also become simpler. Here's a near text query with the older v3 client, and now here's the same query with the new client. It looks neater, and from experience, I can tell you that it's much easier to use. Keep in mind that it is a beta release, so we want to hear from you about them. We've got a feedback thread on our forum, and we'd love to hear from you about issues big and small, or just for you to tell us how much you loved it. And that's it. Weaviate 1.22 is available as open source software for you to run yourself or through various cloud deployment options. Thank you for watching and see you soon.